Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Have you ever parked your car with the valet? I absolutely love valet parking. And here's one of the secrets that a lot of people don't realize is that valet parking is not traditionally, it's really not expensive. And it's such an amazing convenience. It pushes easy on life, especially if you're traveling and you've got kids and you're trying to juggle a bunch of things. When we were in Nashville a couple of years ago, I remember we were using valet parking, and it was just so nice to be able to, have somebody else grab the car while I was able to get something situated with kids and then go. And it sounds like, honestly, old me and my old money mindset and such would have been like, oh, that's such an extravagant, like, you can go get your own car. You don't need to have somebody else do that. But don't we like perks in life? I'm wondering how many of you would rather push easy on life. And I think most of us are going to say yes. Some of you are like, yes, but no, I'll do it myself. I want to save my $3. Okay, well, save your $3. But this episode is about what that is costing you. That mindset is actually costing you. Example, I was talking with a friend catching up. His name's Noel, and we met at the very first conference, event that Steve and I ever went to. It was a Real Estate Guys Secrets of Successful Syndication event in Dallas, Texas years ago. Anyway, we met there, we were catching up, and we were recently at the best ever event in Denver, and didn't have time to actually talk because we had other people we were talking to. We both, as we were talking, recently, we both acknowledged, we really wanted to talk to each other, but we had some specific business steps that we both knew we needed to take. And so we're catching up, and he said, hey, I flew home. And he's like, always pay for first class. Now, for some of you, kind of like that valet parking, it seems like, oh, that's so frivolous. You don't need to have first class. He's like, no, you pay for first class. He said, do you know who I got to fly home beside? And now I'm going to have 15 minutes of this person's time. I have to send the questions to that person in advance, but I'm going to get 15 minutes of their time. So it's really interesting how a lot of times we want to push easy on life, but it's a yes, no. Oh, I want to, but I don't want. And we value the money over the amenity or the connection or the fill in the blank. Maybe it's just simply an opportunity. So as I was thinking about some of my experiences recently with investors, I realized that a lot of investors are making things far more complicated or challenging for them as investors, and they are going to miss out. It is important to be educated. So don't mishear any of this. We have to be educated. We have to know who we are investing with before we invest. And we have to we really need to be confident in that move and clear on what we're investing in and what outcome we are expecting. But sometimes, particularly new investors are caught up in a lot of questions that keep them at the starting line. I'm going to digress for a second and I think I may have shared this story before, but I remember, as probably 17, 18, I was out mountain biking with my friend Andy, and I had never done this before. It's like a V-shaped pit that you would shoot down. It went down 20, 25 feet and then shot up the other side. And I'd get my bike to the edge and stop, to the edge and stop, to the edge and stop. Oh, it went a little bit over the edge, but I'd pull back. And I was so scared. For about an entire hour, I did this. And Andy was so patient as I went through this and encouraging even. Finally, I go over the edge and pop out the other side. And then I repeat the process. But every time I repeat the process, I don't have to wait as long. All that to say, I understand that when we're new, we have to get a level of comfort before we take that first plunge. And I'll tell you, if my husband and I hadn't taken that first plunge, in our first passive investment, I don't know that we would make that same move today. Back then, that company had a $50,000 minimum investment. And now that company has a much larger minimum investment. And as I spend more time in this space, I've been full time for nearly 2 years now. But as I spend time in this space, I realize there's this progression that oftentimes happens. And that is that initially the newer investors will offer 506B investment opportunities. And that means, right, sophisticated and accredited investors. Accredited investors meaning a net worth of $1 million or more, or there's some other ways to clock that. And sophisticated investors are all the other people, right? Like to make it really easy. And so a lot of new investors will offer this 506B. This is open, and I can't advertise it, but I can offer this to friends and family, basically, and accredited investors. But what happens as they gain experience, as they grow their assets under management, is that a lot of times these sponsors will change, and they will either raise their investment minimum. So maybe it was 50. Oh, maybe they just made it 75 and up. Now their minimum investment is $100,000. Or they'll just straight up switch and go from the 506B investment model to the 506C investment model, which for them is pressing easy. So that 506C means sophisticated investors are out of the picture. Now it's only accredited investors. Now they can advertise. Can you see how the ease? It's just creating ease for these investors, right? As well, I can advertise this, and I'm working with accredited investors. They might be easier to work with because they have more cash and they just are ready to rock and roll. This is stereotypical, right? We're just making a gross generalization here. When they are looking at sophisticated investors, their mindset sometimes shifts. And sometimes you hear the chatter like, oh, like super great people, but you know what requires more hand-holding, requires answering more questions. It takes more of them because maybe they only have that $50,000 minimum. And so I'm going to have more investors involved, which means more conversations, more communications, more emails, more. Are you hearing what I'm saying? If we're pressing easy in life, then we can look at it from both perspectives. From the sponsor perspective, right? The general partners running the show, for them, it would be easier to have fewer investors with more money in any deal at any given point in time. It'd be easier for them to be able to advertise. Now, for those of you who are investors on the other side, how are you making things easier for yourself? That would be getting to know other, who am I going to invest with? So listening to podcasts, scheduling calls with people, actually getting to know people so that you know who you can invest with, because not everybody always has an investment. Like, it's not always available right this second. In fact, right now I'm trying to put together an investment so I can bring sophisticated investors together, because there are so many of them right now in my investment community. I'm like, oh, I got to find something for you, but it's always got to be the right deal at the right time with the right people in the right way. It's all got to be structured right. I'm only going to bring the top shelf to anybody, sophisticated or accredited, always top shelf. All that to say, pressing easy for you in passive investors would look like, okay, I know these sponsors, and these are people who are going to have opportunities. And when they have an opportunity, I am going to take action on that opportunity. If my husband and I had not taken that opportunity, in fact, it was a very complicated. Our first passive investment was really just by happen chance. We had finally gotten on the schedule because the schedule was filled out for like 3 weeks or something like that. Finally had an appointment slot with a sponsor, and that sponsor texts me and says, hey, I need to reschedule. Like, okay. I was teaching at the time. And okay, can you reschedule? He asked if I could meet earlier. That was going to be like a super inconvenience for me. But I knew I wanted to meet with that person. I knew that it was going to be another 3 weeks before we'd be able to meet. So I sucked it up and I'm like, okay, yes, let's meet a half hour earlier. My husband hauled over to my classroom. We hopped on this call. And it turns out that night they had a webinar. And because they had that webinar, we were able to invest in their deal. That investment group now has a much higher minimum. And so I just want to keep in mind, like, we were willing and able to take action. And if we hadn't have done that, it would have changed the outcome of things today. So, you know what? Having that mindset of creating ease in life, it is a mindset. Sometimes we're so busy in being self-made people and independent and DIYing that we're actually missing a lot of opportunity in life. I don't want to see you miss an opportunity in life because you're trying to go it alone. This world is meant to be connected. That's part of how we are wired as humans. So I want to encourage you that as you are going through this investment journey, that you are ready to take action. And I don't want to see anybody miss a single opportunity. All right, the first action that you can take now, if you have not already scheduled a call with me and, Three Keys Investments so that we can talk about your investment goals, scroll down to the bottom of the show notes and get on the calendar now. I cannot wait to talk to you. And it's a powerful and important conversation for us to just simply open the door and see where that might lead for everybody. All right, I look forward to talking to you. And until next time, live big, love bigger. A lot of people missed out on my recent offering because they simply weren't on my investor list. Being on my newsletter list won't provide you with access to the deals I have. This is because 506B regulations require you and I actually discuss your investment goals before I can show you the deals I have. If you're on the fence about investing in apartments, schedule a call today at 3keysinvestments.com. If you think you're new, so you don't want to be on an investor list, you're missing out on opportunities to refine your ability to review offerings because you simply will never see them. So head over to 3 Keys Investments and schedule a call.